second time, the African Field Epidemiology Network administers frontline epidemiology training in Botswana, but the first training program targeted low-level district health workers. This next year of training will target a different level of district health workers, but retain the aim of helping to improve epidemiology knowledge in the country's healthcare sector.
Our efforts to build immense capacity at the district level are now a step away from realization. The built capacity will translate in districts being able to increase their surveillance, thus catching any public health threat early on, such as the early detection of mumps that happens in Greater Lobatse DHMT early this year.
The advanced FETP graduates provide mentorship to the 9 months intermediate program, and the 9 months intermediate program graduates or residents provide mentorship to the frontline FETP. So that way we are able to sustain the program and use the in-country capacities to be able to train as many people as we can. So our hope is that much as we've trained the 58 frontliners, as we start the intermediate, we are increasing the pool of potential mentors for frontline FETP. The intermediate FETP primarily targets public health workers at the mid-level of the country.
It has been acknowledged that government's investments and focus on health are showing results.
I am reliably informed that we are beginning to reap the benefits of our investments, as demonstrated by improved IDSR reporting rates, more active rapid response teams, and timely dissemination of operational research.
The speakers emphasized that the skills which will be imparted during the training are critical in helping the nation to better protect its people. Tsholofelo Tombali, BTV News, Gaborone.
President Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi says Africa represents hope and possibility, which ought to be fully leveraged in various sectors. He cited Botswana's multi-sectoral approach to governance as a notable yardstick and collective contribution to the great aspirations of achieving Agenda 2063. He was giving a keynote address at the official opening of the 5th Kusi Ideas Festival in Tlokwen today. Utsidile Onkabetsi reports.
The prosperity of Africa's 1.4 billion plus population looks promising in light of her envisioned Agenda 2063, which envisions an inclusive, sustainable and progressively growing economy. In light of this high-profile forum puts a spotlight on Africa's potential and how it ought to be leveraged in order to deliver on Africa's desired development blueprint.
This event has a unique offering of a transformative and intentional conversation by thought leaders from across the continent and the diaspora to interrogate the various aspects and facets of our collective vision. Botswana stands ready to share with the rest of the continent our success story, modest as it might be. We've had the fortune of maintaining political and economic stability for several decades, which resulted from our multi-stakeholder consultative approach to governance. As we gather in Gaborone for this exchange of ideas, let us remind ourselves of the hope that Africa represents. This hope has been demonstrated in many success stories, which we must constantly communicate in the most true perspective to the rest of the world and dispel the distortions of Afro-pessimistic narratives. This continent is indeed both the cradle and the future of humankind.
This event is very important for us as Africans as we move towards the Africa we want as espoused in the Africa's Agenda 2063. For those of you who are joining this event online, we are determined to ensure that your experience, even though virtual, is just as enjoyable. I can vouch for the robustness of our networks as we are one of the most connected countries on the continent.
Africa's narrative has shifted in the direction of recognizing that she can and hence ought to provide African solutions to Africa's problems.
We cannot continue to blame our colonial masters for the ills that face Africa. I believe we have the capacity to confront all those challenges that we face head on and deal with them. I believe one of the biggest things that I want to see maybe discussed in this conference is how we can decolonize the African mindset to believe in themselves and to believe in the possibility that we do have the answers to African problems, whatever that is.
With a decade into Africa's Agenda 2063, the development landscape of her 54 countries continues to take shape. The next 40 years will be defining as respective nations take on the challenge of optimizing Africa's potential and collectively aligning to the priority of creating a better Africa. Utsidile Unkabetsi, BTV News, Gaborone.
The Africa Business Ethics Conference that is held with the intent to sensitize public and private sectors on issues of corruption and good work ethics has been noted as vital in the day-to-day business by promoting unity among African entrepreneurs, and it can be a catalyst in the fight against corruption. This was revealed by the Acting Minister of Trade and Industry, Ms. Beauty Manake, the official opening of the conference. Kumiso Mapanyani was there.
The celebration of the 20th anniversary in existence has been commended for bringing positive results and offering advices to different traders in the fight against corruption and promotion of positive work ethics, as poor work ethics has been aligned with issues of corruption.
Botswana stands proud as its achievements. We have not merely adhered to international guidelines, we have led by example. Achievements such as establishing functioning institutions such as Ethics and Integrity Directorate, continual strong performance on the worldwide governance indicators, particularly in the category of control of corruption, and ranked 5 out of 54 African countries in 2022, showcasing our commitment to ethical governance. Our success is not just a reflection of our compliance, it is a testimony of our continuous pursuits of excellence in ethical business practices.
The founder of Africa Business Ethics has emphasized the issue of mindset change as in line with one of the agendas of this republic, and it's a backbone in the fight against crime when people change how they think.
So we need to change our mindsets, and how do we do that? Number one, we just need to stop expecting for us. Okay? We also need to think, how does each one of us think differently and creatively? And that is where our conversations on changing mindsets actually begins. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like myself and I'd like you to start thinking, what can I, that is me and you, do as an individual to stop corruption?
Even though there are challenges, transparency and accountability are said to be the key components in fighting those challenges. Kumiso Mapanyani, BTV News, Gaborone.
Khanzi District Council Chairperson Mr. Jeremiah Tibi says the newly established Khanzi Teen Clubs, which targets HIV-positive children from the age of 10 to 19, aims at bringing them together to share experiences and also give them the much-needed support. Mr. Tibi said this during the ongoing Khanzi 4 Council meeting. Mr. Homokwesi compiled this one.
The HIV Teen Club, which was launched this year, is said to be the utmost importance to the youth in this area, as it will help those affected deal with the stigma that is often attached to HIV-positive people, and it will also help with the ways in which they can learn to live positively. Khanzi Council Chairperson overemphasized the importance of the club.
The club targets HIV-positive children aged 10 to 19 with the aim of bringing them together to share experiences, equip them with life skills, provide psychosocial support, and make referrals when there is need. The club also has a total of 30 adolescents recruited and enrolled in the club since its launch in July 2023. Currently, the club covers only 3 places, being Khanzi Township, Kuke, Dikar, due to limited resources. The club members meet monthly on the first Saturday of each month in Khanzi District. Despite some of the challenges of transport for those outside the township and inconsistent attendance by teenagers, let us commend African Mining Services, AMS, for sponsoring the club with the amount of 50,000 pula for it to run smoothly.
Some of the councillors feel some issues, such as sales of ear tag, should have been some chairperson touched on.
Modulasetulo ga ka makganyentse tshwenya batho rena le dikgwedi di le 5 mo gantsi our socio-economic life e dependa thata mo go rekiseng leruo bontse go emetsi gore batho ga ba kgone go ya go bongakeng jo bo duelwang batho ga ba kgone go ipha dijo go mo ke sengwe sa dikgantse modulasetulo na tshentsa a di bue thata mme a rotwetse ba ba lebaganeng gore ba heme seemo se tsena di bua tse dingwe tse dintsi tsa bo de sona bo di tendera tse leng gore di mo processing ra di lebogela tota hela ke kganya gore bodiredi jo bo lebaganeng go go diragatsa tsone dilo tse bo ha tsama quantity surveyors Aken building mechanical engineers and so forth ha ba seyo di tendera tse modulasetulo kana ditiro tse modulasetulo ya buang ka tsone gore ra go tsena mo ngwageng o latelang into the
ga ke utwa gongwe modulasetulo a makganya infrastructure e leng gore ya simologa ke project ya infrastructure metsi a kgopwa leswe ditsela jalo le tse dingwe mme kana project ga e tshwara 1.2 billion o expecta gore gongwe banni ba te go akola sengwe mo go yone go ka thabolola matshelo a bone kana e te hetole matshelo a batho economically ka tsela ne e rileng mme ha e molato kana modulasetulo na dira magoboka dira tekodiso e bophara.
Mr. Tibi further urged councillors to raise awareness about the Temo le Tlotlo program to the communities so that in the event the country receives enough rainfall, the farmers will be able to make use of the program. Lesego Mokwaisi, BTV News, Gantsi.
You're watching BTV News and thank you for staying with us. Now, moving on, the chairperson of 18.com committee, Mr. Mushtaq Murad, says hosting the 18.com in Kasane will put the country on the map, stating that locals will also benefit a great deal. He said this during the press conference held by the Intergovernmental Committee on Intangible Cultural Heritage, known as the 18.com by UNESCO in Kasane, where the meeting is ongoing, as well as updating the media on developments taking place at the meeting and also sharing insights on their experiences thus far. With the report.
Delegates at the Intangible Cultural Heritage, known as the 18.com by UNESCO, are of the view that the hosting of such big events comes with positive benefits to the country's growth. UNESCO too shares the same sentiments, adding they are proud to have made the right decision by bringing it to Kasane, a melting pot of culture and wilderness, and a place befitting to host a gathering of this magnitude.
As Botswana, we are indeed honored and happy that we have had this meeting, and we hope that it will inspire our people to benefit and to also find additional elements that we can list as we move along as intangible cultural heritage.
We are not only glad to convene here today in Kasane, but we are also very proud to be in Botswana. The decision to make it here was the best decision that could be taken. And I want to thank, as you mentioned, the involvement of the President.
The media had an opportunity to ask questions.
As we will be celebrating 20 years, what would you say has been your biggest achievement?
The transfer of knowledge. How we ensure that new generation can follow up the steps of our ancestors. And the second one is how you can get with this convention dialogue between countries through communities that shares the same values.
You see UNESCO advocating more for cultural diplomacy than what we see, the current diplomacy that we see.
Our Delta, which is a World Heritage Site, is there because of the waters that come from Angola. And so how it is important that the Angolans also see the value of the Delta.
After this 18.com, some successful countries who have submitted their elements for potential listing of their intangible cultural heritage will be inscribed by UNESCO after deliberations have been done. Ke a leboga Yole. BTV News, Kasane.
The Acting Minister of Trade and Industry, Ms. Beauty Manake, says writing books and creating art are some intellectual property that can change the country's economy by contributing towards the gross domestic product (GDP), adding that these opportunities that the nation, especially in the youth, can look into to empower themselves. She said this at the official launch of a book by one of Botswana's entrepreneurs, Mr. Mumpuluki Mogobe Termakwe.
The book, titled Momp, Nuggets of Grit, is written by a serial entrepreneur with vast experience in the business sector, and it is hoped to give inspiration, motivation, and guidance to both aspiring and those already in business. It is also a beacon of hope as it encapsulates chronicles of a tough yet fulfilling journey that led to a desired destiny. The book comes at a time when the nation needs hope to maneuver through the economic struggles.
It is a great honor to officiate at the launch of the Momp, the Nuggets of Grit, from the cattle post to a serial entrepreneur. A simply inspirational book that comes at a time when the nation needs hope, at a time when young people need a philosophy to cling on to contribute to the socio-economic development of this country productively.
Inspiration to write the book came from having come from humble beginnings, coupled with having passion for the country to share the experience garnered from 36 years of service as an attorney and investment in business. Those who have had the privilege to be part of the author's journey shared the experiences they've had with the author and the insight they drew from him.
Mesmerized me, particularly with his way of to deal with money. You know, we're talking money, salary and commission. And remember, I was fresh from university. And what was important at the time was money for me. You know, I'm not gonna have money. Some law firms offered me commission and no basic salary. Mom offered me basic salary plus commission and more.
At the physical level and at the emotional level, you don't have enough peace to write a book. There's no peace there. If you really want to write a book or to be creative, you need to move on to the mental level. And that level, that's the only place you can sit down and start collecting your thoughts and being able to bring something out.
The book is epitomized to serve as motivation to all those wishing to empower themselves in life. Terry Makhoeng, BTV News, Gaborone.
Shakawe police are concerned by the stock theft terrorizing farmers. Okavango farmers who depend on farming are left empty-handed due to stock theft that happens regularly. During the anti-stock theft workshop, which was held on Tuesday in Chukumuchu village, farmers have been urged to brand their livestock at an early stage as criminals target unbranded livestock and to follow selling and buying of livestock at all times to avoid being stolen. Tani Sukudu with more. All right, right now we'll be crossing over to Kusi, that is happening right now in Tlokweng.
It is such a pleasure for me to moderate this panel that will discuss the critical issues facing the African continent and talk to the steps that need to be taken to get us to a self-determined prosperity as the African continent. Allow me also at this very moment to welcome on stage my panelists. I would want to welcome at this point, Reggie Mupelo. Reggie Mupelo is the Permanent Secretary, the Ministry of Labor and Home Affairs, and the current chair of the Pan-African Forum on Migration, Mr. Jimmy Mupelo. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome Samuel Mugoya. He is the advisor to the Vice President, Private Sector, Infrastructure and Industrialization from the African Development Bank. Mr. Mugoya. And also joining us virtually is Ms. Treasure Mapanga. She is the former Director, Trade and Industry of the African AU Commission, and she's also the Chief Operating Officer of the AU Trade Group. I hope I'll be able to see her. She's coming through to us virtually from Dar es Salaam. But before we get into this discussion, I just want to give context to this discussion by putting some facts across. In 2018, the African Union adopted the Protocol on the Free Movement of Persons, Right of Residence and Establishment in Africa. This is also embedded in the aspirations of Agenda 2063, which speaks to the free movement of people and capital. Some estimates suggest that some goods and services are 25 to 50% more expensive in Africa because of a lack of competition that comes from their free movement. Regional integration remains the premise for the continental development strategy of the African Union. We must also acknowledge that there has been some progress made. 5 countries as we speak today, the Seychelles, Gambia, Benin, Kenya, and Rwanda, have removed the visa requirement for all Africans. 42 countries offer visa-free travel to the nationals of at least 5 other African countries. But furthermore, recently, Botswana and Namibia made a milestone decision to allow for the use of national identity cards by their citizens between the 2 countries. And to date, 55 members of the African Union have ratified the AfCFTA. Also envisaged, there is a series of flagship projects to make free movement easier. A single African air transport market, SATAM, an African passport, and African high-speed train, cutting across, whizzing people and goods across the continent. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those facts, let me start off this conversation by you, Reggie Mupela. I have made the statement that the president did allude to this morning when he made his opening statement about the milestone agreement between the government of Namibia and the government of Botswana. It's almost been 10 months since that milestone agreement has been put into place. Maybe this is an opportunity to sort of evaluate the impact that this is having on the citizens of the 2 countries.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Let me recognize my colleagues, Samuel, and the virtual colleague who is also attending the panel discussion. First of all, let me affirm that yes, there has been progress with regards to movement. And secondly, let me say that as a country, we have found it very, very important that such a move should be in place. In the morning, as we were listening to our leadership here, they were giving us a scenario of how trade and movement cannot be separated. In other words, wherever you see a human being, there's got to be goods, there's got to be trade, and there's got to be everything else that will make a human life comfortable. So the issue here was that since it's not always everybody who will have passport at any given time, especially looking at the border people who live along the borders, why wouldn't we look into another way of making people mobile in that area? And because in doing so, we are facilitating goods and services and trading as well. And of course, as the 2 countries, it didn't come overnight. This is something that we had to think about. There's got to be an enabling environment to make it happen. And one of the things I want to mention from the onset is the fact that when this idea was pondered around, there were some doubts and suspicions and other things that how can an identity be used as a traveling document? And I'm here to say to yourselves, this speaks to the auspices or the direction in which the agenda, Africa Agenda 2063 is looking for, where we should be able to facilitate ourselves, to facilitate the economy. Everything else regarding the security, the identity that has to do with Omang, as we call it, is very, very safe. And the reason being that the features that you will see normally, almost in every identity card, are those that can be captured in the international movement platform, such as in ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Authority, as some people will call it. So we are happy about what we see now. We see the numbers that are improving. because people don't have to wait for their passport to be renewed. People don't have to wait to say, let me look for some money so that I can be able to pay for passport. Because if you use the identity card, it caters for all people from various cycles